Welcome back to my channel, and today we're gonna take a look at God of War performance. And to be fair, before we jump in on all the graphical settings and stuff like that and how it all looks and feels and runs, there is one pretty big issue I would want to address prior to jumping in. As you might actually notice, this looks quite terrible, but the model is pretty good looking. Still, you have some reflections. Now, here's the kicker, why? So as you can see, it still tries to do it on 4K. Now here's the problem that I've discovered. The game itself reads off from a display adapter of whichever monitor you actually have hooked up. So since I'm connected to 4K TV, it automatically does not allow me to downscale it down to 1080. In terms of downscaling, yes it does. But and let me just show you what I mean by that. This is still 4K, just downsampled to 1080p, while it's still basically 4K. So what? Long story short, this is not true Full HD. It renders it on Full HD. It's basically double rendering. It's just downsampling for the 4K. Which gives pretty inaccurate readings, and the reason I know is because I've been running benchmarks on my own games, and yeah, this is still downsampled 4K. So prepare to see something very, very terrible, but that's the true face of God of War in 1080p. So hello, and well, this is basically what I wanted to show you. So we are actually where we want to be. Full HD resolution, 100% render scale, no motion blur, no film grain. Graphics we're going to be looking at is low by preset. I'm not going to change anything. And to be fair, it looks pretty damn grim. Now we are running a 1080 Ti obviously, as all my benchmark videos so far. And to be fair, it's not exactly that bad. The GPU usage is 75%. We are pulling 3.9, almost 4 gigabytes of video memory and 9 gigs of system RAM. So what we're gonna do is basically just run around a little bit, just to see if we get any frame dips, which technically shouldn't happen. Obviously the draw distance, everything detail related is literally just turned off, so I think that pretty much kind of explains. I mean, this is what you get from low, okay? I mean, I don't know what people have some expectations for low setting. I literally think this setting is for people who simply don't upgrade, like me. You know, 1080 Ti is an ancient card. It does hold up in certain games still, but you know, I know people who are still rocking 970s, 960s, 980s, and you know, it's why upgrade if there's a chip shortage? So, how does it run on low? Cannot really complain. People who want graphical fidelity obviously will say, oh my god, it looks like garbage. At the same time, to be fair, PlayStation 4 settings wasn't actually too much different from this. Maybe a little bit crispier, everything, but apart from that it was kinda the same. I've seen the gameplay, and I don't know. Frames 100 over, I mean, to be fair, everything above 60 is good enough, but this game originally launched with 30 frames on PlayStation 4, so to be completely fair, I don't see the problem here. And for low settings, it's playable. And end of the story, this is more story-driven game than combat-driven. Combat is a very good addition and a very welcome addition in God of War title. But this particular game, I would say, is more story-driven than combat. You don't need to fight to progress the narrative, so to say. You know, you can just like do your own thing and you can explore, and this open world aspect, it's more open worldish than everything else. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that's all there is about low. As you can see, there's nothing really going on, nothing at all. It just works. So let's go and kick it up a notch, shall we? So here we are in Full HD original settings. I do take this seriously, so I restarted the game so everything applies Let me just double check that everything is still okay, because sometimes the render scale just disappears somewhere. So in terms of graphical fidelity, it's very hard for me to see too much of this difference, to be honest. The draw distance is still pretty short. I mean, it's more covered up with fog and blur. The model itself might be a bit less choppy. I mean, to be fair, all the reflections on my backpack, the armor, the axe, pretty simple stuff. Frames are still the same. GPU usage has went up from 70% to sometimes up to 100. Like, as you can see, it's jumping up and down. Not really much to see, to be fair. So yeah, I don't know. Never gets old, does it? So yeah, I don't know. Again, original settings, and they're supposed to be the original settings from the PlayStation, right? I mean, let's be honest here, but is there a very noticeable difference between low and original? Maybe, if you really look for things. I don't know. It's really hard. For me, low and original is kinda in the same boat. Pun intended. You know, it's just full HD end of the day. I mean, again, performance-wise, well above 60 frames, which is, I would say, the target. And yeah, we're using slightly more video memory, which is now 4.6 gigs, and slightly more system RAM, which is up to 9.7. So, overall, for full HD, absolutely fine. Obviously, for bigger fights, it might drop down. I would expect it to drop down roughly to around 80 frames, maybe even 75, 70. But I wouldn't say that, you know, this is so unplayable that, you know, you should just throw out your PC or something. It's still a console port. Now, low and original will not do justice for our comparison and tests, so I think it's time to actually up the ante, and let's look at the settings that apparently will make the PCs melt, and specifically the older hardware, which at this point I'm counting 1080 Ti as an older hardware, so let's see how that goes. And I think this is gonna be fun. So we're back again with high settings this time. Again, let's just quickly double check. Still full HD. Preset high. So what do we have? So the GPU usage has gone up a bit. So we're using 7 gigs. And the system RAM usage has gone up. We're using 11 gigs. Graphically, I don't know, is it just me, but I don't see the draw distance increase at any point. There is a bit more reflection and a bit more texture sharpening happening here. I can just see like a bit more details in the foliage here, in the moss and stuff like that. The frames, well, yes, they are finally below 100, which I guess is a good thing if you're interested in that. So when it comes to full HD and high settings, apparently this is fine, and I don't know, this is pretty acceptable from my point of view. As long as it goes for God of War in general, I would say it's pretty decent. So yeah, not entirely sure what I was expecting. I kind of thought, you know, like high settings will be like, oh my god, my PC can't handle it because of the spec sheet. And the spec sheet they dished out like themselves is a bit weird, because basically they say that for 2K and above you need starting from 2080 up until the 3080. So clearly, if we are upping the resolution, it's gonna cost us the performance of the GPU. But is that really the case when it comes to expensive graphical fidelity? The game looks fine, I would say, on a higher resolutions. Sure, absolutely agree with that. But performance-wise, I don't know. If I just wanted to play the game and I had a really old rig, I would be happy that this game just it's been ported out. So yeah, I don't know, very, very hard to draw a conclusion here. Does it look better? A bit more volumetric fog, a bit more bling on all those metallic surfaces. Draw distance is still pretty bad. You can clearly see there's like a cutoff where it just goes into blur, because those places you probably just can't even visit, because there's a tunnel and you don't even see the top of the mountain, so no one actually cared when they made the game. So yeah, performance wise it's still fine. GPU jumping up and down, so nothing that we haven't seen before. I don't know. Let's go for Ultra, and then we're gonna talk about some 4K stuff a bit. And away we go with Ultra settings for Full HD. Let's just double check everything again. Render scale is still the same. Graphics is on Ultra. So obviously, well, it does look a tiny bit different. As you can see, there's already more reflections on these puddles here. The tiles have some skybox reflections, very minimalistic, but well, it's there. Overall texture quality did not exactly improve that much. I mean, the moss still looks kind of flat to me. But then again, I mean, look at this. I mean, let's be honest, right? So the textures probably were getting a rework in terms of resolution, you know, like high-res textures, but it's still the same texture, it's just been upscaled. And that would make sense, because to remake this whole engine for PC, that would take more than 2 years. That would be a brand new game, I believe. So yeah, in terms of all the shadows and things like this, yes, there is certainly some noticeable features. What about the draw distance? The draw distance is literally the same, if not worse, to be honest. I mean, look at these guys in the boat. They're so blurry. Can't even make out what the hell is there, and we're supposed to... I think we have to go there or somewhere else. Who knows? Doesn't matter. Fire effect, I'm not even gonna touch that. Fire effect, I haven't seen a game where the fire effect even looks good to begin with, so I'm not even gonna touch that subject. So what do we have in terms of our metrics here? So 99% of GPU usage from time to time. It's not exactly constant. 7.6 on GPU and 11 from system. Pretty close to the regular high settings we just tried, if not identical, to be fair. So again, we are basically around 60 frames. I would say, well, it's above 60, but I would say if we're getting 70-ish while running down the stairs on pretty enclosed and pre-rendered, preloaded map, probably getting into some fights will cost us. So I would say this is kind of like my 60 at this point, because just cruising and some pre-rendered... I mean, this whole game is pre-rendered. Let's be fair. I mean, this is how the games for PlayStations work, right? Texture streaming were not really a thing because of the hardware limitations. So when they even launched the Horizon Zero Dawn, they had to work some magic to actually cope with PlayStation's memory usage and available graphical memory. And also for the CPU, so they made that only the things that you see in this frame is actually being rendered, and everything behind you is not. So that's how you that's how you achieve the stable frame rate for the most part. I'm not saying that it's 100%, and you can kind of feel it. At the same time, this game, honestly, it runs absolutely fine on 30 frames, because I don't know, unless you're running a benchmark like this, like the MSI Afterburner, you don't actually notice. And I speak from experience, because if you've seen my gameplays, I play on 4K original settings, and I know that I'm not hitting 60 constantly. And I know that not because I'm running metrics. I know it because I'm not getting any screen tearing. My TV is only 60 Hz, so the moment I get above 60, that means I should get screen tearing, and my vertical sync is always off. So that means I'm getting way less. Obviously I did the benchmark, and I'm getting about 50-ish. So 4K original settings on 1080 Ti jumps between 45 to 60. I would say 55. 45 to 55 is like 58 is pretty much the closest, I would say, in most times. During the fights it definitely drops below. I would say intense fights with about 5 Grogers and stuff going on, I would say it does feel like it drops down below 40, and I can only say it because the movement of the Kratos throwing becomes kind of bit of a jittery. But apart from that, I wouldn't actually say that, you know, it's a game stopper. No, not at all. It's completely fine. Oh, what is that? No. All these strangers on these towers are giving me grief because I don't know how to play RPG, so I suck at my leveling up. Anyway, talking about ultra settings and how it looks, well, I don't know. I would still say that Horizon Zero Dawn kinda looks better on PC. But again, this game is not exactly, you know, it doesn't need to be insane masterpiece when it comes to graphical fidelity. Yes, some things are good, like, you know, the World Serpent, some of the Eternals, or I don't know, whoever they were supposed to be. They look fine. They look pretty nice up close. But again, as long as you can play the game, let's be real here. As long as you can play the game, does it matter? And I can see that the GPU usage creeped up a bit, up to 8 gigs now. And the system is kind of close to 12, but I don't know. Looks pretty nice. Now let's go back to some original 4K and let's see at the performance there. So here we are actually, so let me just double check. So we are on original and we are on 4K native. So what do we see? First of all, in 4K, all of this pretty much looks the same. As you can see, the frames in the upper left corner, 49, 50, 55-ish. Does it impact this game? Absolutely not. Reason being, this game was launched with 30 frames on PlayStation 4. And that's it. So as long as I'm not below 30, the movement speed or fluidity is just a preference. Of course, some people will say, no, if you don't get 60 frames, oh my god, it's unplayable. Have you ever played on PlayStation 2, bro? Or PlayStation 3? Everything was frame locked to 30, and you played Destiny on 30 and you are happy with that, so you know what? Shut the fuck up. I mean, these frame hunters are just annoying as hell. Now, when it comes to 4K, and honestly, I've tried a lot of different settings, and I already know if I will put everything to Ultra, well, probably I'm gonna get a slideshow with about 12 frames, which is expected for 1080 Ti because it's not a 4K card, it's a 4040p card. On 4040p, as long as you have the pixels on the screen to show for, I would say you can play around with your settings all you want. Currently, at least for those who care, 4K gives us 99% of GPU usage, 6 gigabytes, well 6.8 gigs of video memory, so we're actually pulling less memory than on Ultra and Full HD, and almost 10 gigs of system RAM, and we're getting 57 frames. And honestly, obviously this video will be downscaled to 4040p for the YouTube gods, and it will not make it justice, but I'm pretty sure that this video will look, I would say, pretty much the same as the original on original settings, because it is the original settings. It's not gonna look better, it's not gonna look worse, it's gonna look exactly the same. So yeah, I don't know. It's just a bigger screen. But the textures are still the same. So there you have it. I would say play whatever setting you choose to, on whichever hardware you choose to play, and I think it's gonna be fine. End of the day, this is a very story-driven game, and as long as you enjoy story, and you can live with some hiccups, and not running Ultra just for a checkbox, I think you're gonna be well off and you can enjoy the game. Also, Nvidia actually released a driver for God of War, so if you haven't updated and you are with Nvidia card, you might want to check it out. And you know, maybe it's gonna improve some things. I should have run the test on day 1 when it launched, and after that it received a patch, and after that it received the Nvidia one. It might actually give a bit more insight in terms of performance before after patch, before after Nvidia driver. But I cannot really complain. And I'm just gonna keep playing like this because it just feels like I have a PlayStation connected to my TV, which it's how PlayStation is supposed to be. Anyway, on this note, I think that's pretty much all there is. If you got any questions, put them down below in the comment box. And yeah, see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.